Chapter 14 3 years later. The clashing of steel on steel and steel on wood echoes across the training yard behind the blacksmiths. As Rossner parries another blow, he hears Arndt shout from the edge of the yard. "Great job! Now, what in the seven realms was that?" Rossner hears Arndt, but his ears are overpowered by a ringing sensation that drowns out his voice. His head spins, and his body with it, as he falls to the ground. Getting bashed in the head from a shield is never fun. This one especially so. Before he knows it, Arndt is on top of him, sending away his sparring partner. Rossner takes a few moments to blink Arndt into focus against the life-giver behind him. When he finally sees the glare in the trainer's eyes, he quickly wishes his face is blurry again. "You have been at this for 3 years now," Arndt exclaims. "How in the name of all gods did you let that get past you?" Immediately, Rossner understands Arndt's frustration. He has been doing this for 3 years, ever since Palfrey took Kadoric. It is also then that Asra received a dragon as well. The only difference is, she nearly died before being bonded with it, and Palfrey was the one to bind them. On the other hand, it has been 3 years since anyone has seen or heard of Kadoric or Palfrey, and lately it has started to worry Rossner. He knows he never paid much attention to his brother compared to his sister. They are basically inseparable. In fact, there were moments Rossner barely gave him much more than a second thought. He took him for granted. Now that he is gone, he finds himself regretting it. Rossner shakes his head. "I know, it is just..." He pauses, trying to find the right words. He's frustrated with himself for allowing the strike to get through. He is also, with some guilt, frustrated for allowing the thought of his brother to play with his mind in the middle of a fight. Finally, he admits the truth. "I have been thinking about my brother." To his surprise, Arndt's expression softens immediately. He holds out an arm for Rossner to grab. They grasp at the forearm, and Rossner is hauled to his feet. "If you are worried about your brother," Arndt says, "worry not. Palfrey is a great sorcerer. He will take care of Kadoric." If Arndt is trying to reassure Rossner, it does not work. In fact, it has the opposite effect. Especially... I have been meaning to ask about that. That shade that bound Kadoric and his dragon. He called Palfrey the first of 7 of the 7th. What does that even mean? The other welcoming thing about Arndt is that he knows about the dragon as well. When Palfrey first addressed the smith, one of the first things out of his mouth was, "Dragon." Arndt did not bat an eye at its mention. Rather, he continued the conversation as though it was common to discuss such beasts. Of course, he still must watch his tone around others. He does not want to imagine what someone may say if they overheard talk of such a beast. "It is only a title," Arndt answers dismissively. Rossner sighs. "Yes, but where does it originate from?" Instead of answering, the thin man heads for the back door of the smithy. Rossner follows. A few strides in, Arndt says, "You have 1 week before the tournament begins. It is best you stay focused. Everyone has apparently been training hard this year. More than normal." He stops outside the door and turns to Rossner. "Which means you have to have exemplary training to stand a chance." Rossner raises an eyebrow. "So what? You going to have me swing a sword for the rest of the day?" Halfway through the sentence, he realizes what he is saying and tries to stop himself, but all the words fall out. A smile plays on Arndt's lips as the last of his sarcastic comment empties from his mouth. It unsettles Rossner. but he also knows what it means. You cannot be serious. You will rotate training partners, but I want you to go to the kiss. Rosner throws a hand to the sky. She is not even seated her throne, he protests. Arndt opens the door and walks through. Before closing it behind him, he turns to Rosner. Just remember, you are the one who offered to do so. Rosner stares at the closed door. He must remember to stop offering ludicrous options to that man. As promised, at the Life-Giver's kiss, Arndt lets him leave, with his whole body feeling as if it has been beaten for hours straight, which, in a way, it has. Rosner lumbers over the hill and down the road towards the village. In front of him, the Life-Giver casts her brilliant array of colors onto the sky. Even from this distance, he can see the merchants have closed their stalls and retired to their ships. The only people in view are the Venmarian soldiers patrolling the village and its outskirts. Ever since the castle fell into the sea and destroyed the southern docks, small waves of soldiers from the 7th Army have come every cycle or so, each one more soldiers than the last. Some of them leave, most of them stay. After a few cycles, curfews were installed, which Rosner and Osser have religiously ignored, despite the risk of getting jailed on one of the ships. No one yet has figured out what any of them are doing here, but Rosner feels Arndt knows something about it. He plays it off as if he is clueless as everyone else, but he knows something. Rosner is sure of it. He was sure of it 3 years ago when Arndt proposed a tournament to the village after Pulfrey left. Arndt assures him he talks with the village annually about the prospect, which to Rosner's disappointment was verified when he asked around. But apparently the castle falling into the sea affected more than just the three of them. Several days after the incident, Arndt approached the village again, and they finally agreed. Posting went out immediately to neighboring towns and villages, and the responses were powerful. Everyone sought to prove themselves to be the strongest and the most skilled. But it was not Arndt proposing the idea that struck Rosner odd. It was what he began doing after. The blacksmith became more involved with the village, more passive than active, but involved nonetheless. He knows this should not seem strange, but it does, and he watches the soldiers, studies more like. Then there are moments when he will disappear altogether. Rosner knows the man has his own life, but he admits Arndt's life is an oddity. A chill creeps up Rosner's spine. He glances to the side and finds himself standing in front of Casper's cutlery. Through the dusty windows he can see empty shelves resembling the feeling of his stomach. It has been 3 years since Pulfrey turned Casper to dust. He never explained what happened. And then again, Rosner never asked. It hurt too much back then. He also could not wrap his head around what suddenly was going on in his life. To be honest, he still cannot. But it comes with less of a shock. However, now that Rosner has had a moment, or several, to think about the past, he would like to ask about that night. The only problem is, no one has seen Pulfrey since he took his brother away. Whether he is compelled by curiosity, desperation, or some other form of motivation, somehow he finds himself walking towards the bench on the porch outside the shop. He lets his fingers play with the latch in the hidden compartment where Casper left the spare key. Something tells him to walk in, just to wander around, but he refrains with some effort. He forces himself to look away and walk on. There's nothing for him in there anymore. He spent many nights cleaning every crack and crevice. He only spent a few seconds in the freezer when he grabbed a piece of meat for Shadow, before the 7th Army took him away and killed Casey to make a point. Rosner feels his face heat up. His hands ball into tight fists. He feels a hint of a tear starting to form, but Rosner wills it away. There is no point in shedding tears for her now, though his vow still stands. It is not I who will share her fate, but you who have committed this crime, and I vow to be the one to take your life. Thinking of his vow, he remembers hearing Palfrey speak the first words he has ever heard the man say. Those words you speak are quite strong. He can still feel the power in his voice, like an itch that will not go away, however kind and gentle he remembers it as. He recalls him nodding to the dagger in his hand. Would you put that away? You will hurt yourself. He remembers how Palfrey somehow took the ring from his pocket and placed it on his own finger without moving. His skin starts to crawl again when he thinks about the ring. That ring is something else that connects Caspar and Palfrey. And Ylsa. At least with her, it has to do with the symbol. Gods, he has not thought about her since the Weeping Castle fell into the sea and they found the dragons. With the other two, Caspar treasured the ring which belonged to Palfrey, keeping it in the back storeroom on a tall brazier with the simple note that read, I will be watching. He remembers the darkness all around him, closing in on him, cutting him off from everything. Rosner's foot catches on something, and he stumbles forward, shaking him from his thoughts. He manages to catch himself in a couple steps. After glancing back, he spots a small rock sticking out of the ground. For a moment, he just stares at it. Then he feels eyes on him. He slowly turns his head around and spots at least half a dozen soldiers watching him. A couple of them try to hide it. Others stare right at him, waiting for the life-giver to disappear beneath the covers of the land when the curfew takes effect. Right now, she rests halfway under her covers, but some of the more impatient soldiers like to enforce curfew a little early, and since there is no one to keep them in check, they get away with it quite frequently. One soldier in particular catches Rosner's attention. He notes a slight change in the patrol path to what Rosner can only guess is to intercept him. To avoid such a confrontation, Rosner slips into the row of merchant stalls. He then cuts across the path between the row of stalls and ducks behind the other row, so he finds himself between the stalls and the base of the empty hill. Eventually, he reaches the water's edge. He lets a few seconds pass as he looks around for the soldier before trudging through the brush on his left. A few strides in, he finds a path only visible to those who know it is there. He then follows it to the cliff face and the 4 feet of dock still attached to it. 30 feet beyond is a simple lamp set into the rock, signaling the entrance to the tavern once occupied by pirates, mercenaries, and bounty hunters alike. Since the castle destroyed the docks, no one has returned to fix it, nor has he seen any return, period. Yet the lantern stays lit. It might not be the last place he saw her, but standing here still reminds him of Sindra. It is only recently he realized what his mind was thinking back then. He liked her, a lot, but he did not realize it. And it burns him to know he will probably never get the chance to tell her, especially since she seemed to share the same feelings. As he understands it, the world is huge, and he has only been outside Tichthrym to perform deliveries to the neighboring towns and villages. He will never see her again. Just like Ylsa. Of course, she was different. He did feel an attraction to her, but it was not the same kind of attraction like he had to Sindra. Sindra seemed real, something physical. Ylsa was more fantastical, something from a dream that could never truly be held. He cannot quite explain why, but after looking back, it is what seemed likely. And now that he also has the symbol to connect her to the other oddities of his life, her mystical appearance seems all the more strange. Rosner grabs a stick from the ground and swats it at tall grass. He doubts he would have realized either of his situations if not for his training partners pointing it out to him. It was while they were sparring. As it happened, a group of girls appeared by the fence and watched them exchange strikes. The two of them figured they would wander off after a couple minutes, but they stayed, looking like they were rather enjoying themselves. His partner called them to stop. When they did not spot Arndt anywhere, he said they should talk to them. Rossner remembers shrugging and following, not thinking anything of it. Their conversation was brief. The girls walked off giggling. After they were out of earshot, however, his partner shoved him. "What is wrong with you?" he demanded. Rossner remembers shaking his head, completely confused. "What are you talking about?" The baffled look on his partner's face surprised him. "Are you telling me you did not realize all those girls were interested in you? To judgment with me, the entire lot of them wanted you." Since then, he started actively listening to what girls were saying to him and how they said it. To his surprise, a handful of them have tried sweet-talking him, but at that point, none of them mattered. None of them matter. He does not always do it, but every now and then, he cannot help but think what would have happened if he realized what Sindra was saying to him. Is he thinking about this too much? "Rossner." Rossner spins on his heels, suddenly alert. All around him shadows take on elongated forms, but he finds none to match the deep, grinding voice. Then the shadow of a tree a few strides away gives birth to a humanoid black mass. The mass takes silent steps towards him. The grass seems to pass through him, but it can simply be the darkness fooling him. Protruding from his head are two large horns that curve up and slightly in. Before Rossner can take in any more, he finds himself on the dock, the creaking boards breaking the silence that has cast itself over them. He bears the stick like a sword, pointing it at what Rossner guesses is the mast's heart. 3 years and nothing out of the ordinary happens. And now this. He cannot see this future being very bright. What do you want?" Rossner curses himself for stuttering, but he cannot help it. A shadow-like humanoid walking towards anyone will have them fumbling for words. "That is quite true," the black mass says as he continues his slow approach, almost like a predator sizing up their kill before the strike. That does not answer his question. It does not even make sense. The mass inquires. "Nothing makes sense to those who are subject to having their minds read." The mass steps onto the path a few strides away from Rossner and stops, a quarterstaff in an outstretched hand. At this point, Rossner realizes what stands in front of him is not a what, but a who. The horns he saw earlier are on part of a dark, cylindrical helm with a T-shaped cut in the front to show a face, if there is a face to be shown. Beyond the cut is a black mist that seems to absorb the last slivers of the life-giver's light. The armor that beholds him depicts a mass of ghostly faces screaming silently as they stretch against the material and get pulled back into its depths and out of sight. The only color the armor bears are red lines trailing from the fingertips to a large red disc on the back of either gauntlet. The more Rossner stares, the more he realizes every inch of who stands before him is absorbing the light, casting him in infinite darkness. Despite the small breeze, the cloak draped over the dark figure's back does not move. A small rumble emanates from within the helm. "You should stop thinking and start speaking. It makes this conversation less one-sided." Feeling a strange inclination to listen, Rossner says the first thing that comes to mind. "Who are you?" The helm shakes like someone shakes their head in disappointment. "That I cannot answer." "How do you know who I am?" Surely this can be answered.
Again, I cannot answer.
Rosner takes his turn to shake his head. Then why are you here? He demands, his words dripping with more irritation than he intended. If this guy is going to continue to talk riddles...
I need your help.
Rosner readies himself for another cannot answer, but instead finds his tongue caught in his mouth. Does he really hear this correctly? Help is what he needs. A strange sensation in the back of his mind, almost like the skin being pinched, stops any more thoughts. Instead, he stares into the darkness of the helm, where he thinks eyes can possibly rest. Why would I help you?
Because doing so will help your brother.
The response is so immediate. Rosner feels his throat seize up. He takes a moment to respond, slow, careful, and quiet. How do you know about my brother?
I can allow myself to only say that Pullfrey failed to help him.
Rosner does not know which is worse, the fact he claims to know about K'doric, or the even tone in his voice as he talks about him. If that is true... His throat constricts again. Rosner knows he regrets how he treated his brother, but he did not realize hearing news of him, any news, would affect him like this. He takes a breath and forces himself to gain control over his body. If that is true, what can I possibly do? Hey! Behind the horned man, the soldier from earlier heads down the path towards them. It is past curfew. Unless you have an excuse, you are coming. Then he crumbles like a sack of potatoes falling off a high shelf. Every emotion disappears from Rosner's reach, leaving his face as blank as parchment. What? The helm shakes again with more disappointment. The deep grinding voice reverberates from within.
You should have not followed you.
Rosner feels like he just got slapped. You mean you killed him? Instead of answering, he returns to the previous conversation.
So, will you help?
Taking being ignored as another way of saying yes, Rosner cannot help but say, You did not even move.
I did not have to.
Rosner notes the hint of frustration in his voice.
Will you help?
Rosner opens his mouth, then closes it. He sets his jaw and peers back into the darkness, hoping he is staring into the pair of eyes. Fine. What do you want?
I need you to acquire the dragon's tear.
Rosner might as well have gotten slapped again. This is far from what he even least expected. A dragon's tear?
No. Not just any will do. You'll need the dragon's tear. The fallen one of two who were once one.
What? Rosner feels like his brain just been tenderized. The helm drops forward a hair. It is so small and human that for a second Rosner thinks he is seeing things. His next words are full of annoyance.
I cannot explain everything to you, but this is something that you must do.
Asra is usually worse, but Rosner still does not take kindly to being told he must do something. He stands up straighter and peers defiantly. And what if I refuse? A low rumble falls from the figure before him. It takes him a moment to realize the rumble is a laugh. The figure then turns and walks back to the tree. Rosner reddens with irritation. By ear, do not walk away from me. Answer me! On the edge of the tree's shadow, the figure pauses, his features blending with the shadow. Over his shoulder, the voice barrels towards Rosner.
You have no choice.
Then he disappears, leaving chills crawling up Rosner's spine from the seriousness in his tone. Before long, Rosner makes his way home. He pauses at the soldier, but does not stay long. The man is clearly dead, and if he is caught with the body, he will be killed on the spot. The shadows around him blend into the growing darkness as the life-giver lays to rest in the west. The night is still, soundless, save his own footfalls, which are deafening. Only one question runs through his mind, one simple, yet impossibly complicated question. What is going on? As he moves down the path towards the house, a small glow catches his attention. Curious, he heads to the barn and peers through one of the windows. Inside, he finds his sister cross-legged. Lying down across from her and facing him is Strongheart. The red dragon's wings are folded in, with paws tucked under her chest. Before he can duck away, he and the dragon lock eyes. Seconds later, Asura turns around. It is obvious she did not expect him, but she still waves at her brother to come in. Initially, he's reluctant, but then he figures this is his chance to get some answers. Maybe. No one seems to have them readily available. Rosner barely gets the door open before Asura greets him. Hey, did you just finish with Arendt? It is a little late. He closes the door behind him before answering. No, I was wandering a little. You have a question for me. Rosner cringes involuntarily. He is still not used to being spoken to through his mind, especially from a creature that used to fit in Asura's lap. In only 3 years, she has grown to the size of a large horse. I do, actually, yes. Asura gives him a quizzical look. He ignores it. He has not yet found it comfortable to speak in his mind, so he says his thoughts aloud. How does he ask this without sounding ridiculous? After realizing there is none, he just asks, what is a dragon's tear? He might be imagining it, but Strongheart appears to shiver. Why do you ask? Why is he asking? He can answer this in a multitude of ways. He can say he is only curious. He can also mention that someone mentioned it to him, or that he overheard it. Or he can mention the figure. But would she know anything? More importantly, is it wise to talk about him at all, whether she knows or not? After his encounter with the figure, something keeps telling him that his presence should be kept secret. As he ponders how to answer, he catches Asura start to ask a question, but then closes her mouth. Rosner can only guess that Strongheart asked her to keep quiet. Eventually, he decides being discreet might be the best option. It was something I overheard in the market earlier. You truly find it necessary to lie? Before Rosner can make an argument against this, the dragon adds, I can sense your hesitation. Speak the truth. Rosner glances past the dragon, trying to avoid its unsettling stare. All the horses are asleep. Outside, the light has almost completely depleted, making the lantern light seem brighter and him feel smaller. Finally, he gives in. A man in black armor told me that finding the dragon's tear would help K'dork. This snaps Asura out of her silence. What is wrong with K'dork? Is he all right? Have you heard from him? Asura. Rosner cuts her off before she can ask any more questions and becomes frantic. I do not know anything about K'dork's condition except for what this guy told me. And
describe the armor?
It takes Rosner a moment to dissociate his own thoughts from Strongheart's. It was midnight black, I guess, but it seemed to be sucking the light from the surroundings. Nymph apio vilfre gehai kim devig. Come again?
The Death King of the Seven Realms spoke to you. Also known as Nymph Gek Mef Vilfre Epi Kim Devig, Death's servant of the Nine Realms.
You must follow his request. And why is... Wait. I thought there were only 7 realms. Astra looks at him crossed. Of course there are only 7 realms. Strongheart rumbles with irritation. The horses wake from their slumber and dance nervously in their stalls.
There are 9, but this realm has chosen to forget one, and only a few know of the other. Your teachings have forgotten the origins of our existence and simply accept things as they are now.
Okay. Rosner pauses, unsure how to proceed. 9 realms. What are these other 2?
I do not know. My mind is still developing. There are some things that I innately know, with no reason to know them. Perhaps within the coming year I will have an answer of such.
So, what about this Death King? Rosner asks.
Some things I innately know with no reason of knowing them,
The dragon repeats.
All I know is he must not be ignored.
Rosner raises an eyebrow. Really? So, what if I do?
He cannot be ignored.
How the dragon says cannot sends a chill down his spine. More questions stir in his mind, but he does not get a chance to ask any. Instead, Astra speaks up. Strongheart is right. We should rest now. It is getting late. Rosner looks outside. The Life-Giver's light has been consumed by the blanket of darkness. Within it, only the brightest of stars shine against it. As Rosner stares at one particularly bright one, a thought crosses his mind. He turns around and looks at Strongheart. So, he inquires, what is a dragon's tear? Strongheart shifts her weight, almost like the question brings her discomfort. After a moment of silence, Rosner feels his head vibrate with her words.
A dragon's tear is the most powerful elixir in existence. Its properties cure almost any disease or evil essence from the body. However, only one tear of such power is produced for every dragon, and there is only one period at which one can harvest something like this, at its death.
So, all we need to do is find a dragon near its deathbed and...
No. The dragon still has power, even near death. They choose whether they release the tear or not.
Rosner leans against one of the stalls. Oh.
The dragon you seek has already passed. They say its tear was never harvested.
So how are we supposed to get it?
If the Death King requests that you retrieve it, then the tear survives.
So how can we find it? Strongheart shakes her head.
You ask unanswerable questions.
Rosner feels the heat rise in his head. And you say unhelpful riddles. A small jet of fire erupts from Strongheart's maw.
Do not think little of a dragon's words. I may not know the answers you seek, but I have given you what I can. You would be roasted in circumstances other than this.
Rosner takes an unconscious step back. Her voice does not hint at any threats being made, but rather a warning. However, it is still unsettling. Asra, who found her way to the door before the conversation, looks at Rosner. "Are you done yelling at Strongheart?" He gives her a slight nod, then follows her out. Before he leaves, he pauses with a hand on the door and peers over his shoulder. Strongheart seems to have forgotten about them and went right to sleep, but something tells him she is awake as ever.